Welcome to the 15th episode of Teaching Aptitude. This 15th session, here we will learn the memory and its types. So, this particular topic has been of recent importance, and we should know the 4 R's of memory. So, first is remembering, then retention, recall, and recognition. These are the 4 R's. What is remembering? Of course, we have to store information and retrieve that information whenever needed. Retention is the ability to store information over time. This has to be over a period of time, okay? When we can store a particular amount of information for a long period of time, then it is called retention. Recall is bringing back information without any clues, because when there are some cues or when there are some hints, we can recall information, but the ability of bringing back any information without any hint is called recall. And recognition is identifying what you have learned previously when you see it again. So this is very easy, and these are the 4 R's of memory. Then we move back and go to the types of memory. So there are many types of memory that we have been learning. We've been hearing about that. So first is the sensory memory, and it is also called as the register memory, where we get information by our sensory organs, and this is for a very short period of time, that is less than 1 second. Okay, so there are 3 types in sensory memory. First is the visual iconic, where it is the information by eyes. The information by ears is the auditory or echoic memory, and the haptic memory is the information that is received by touch. So these are the 3 sensory organs that we are targeting, and the information that we get by our senses, we need to remember it as sensory or registry memory. So the next is short term or immediate memory. Now here, when I say my phone number is 900315689, now here you might have noticed that you remember the first few digits very clearly. First 3 to 4 digits you remember very clearly. Why? Because that gets stored under the short term memory, and you can recall that, whereas the last few numbers that I said, they were unclear to you. So if the sensory memory gains attention, it gets transferred to the short term memory, and here the capacity is generally 5 to 9 items, and that the duration is only 30 seconds. The working memory is our actively processed and the one that manipulates information that is there in the short term memory. So this is, however, very small amount of information that can be used in execution of certain tasks, that is cooking a recipe. Okay, so this is generally used while we are doing something, while we are doing some activity or something, we use our working memory. Then is the long term memory. Now long term memory, of course, is unlimited, and the duration is lifetime. It is a permanent storehouse of information, as we say. And here there are 2 types. One is the explicit or declarative memory, and the other is the implicit memory. Now when we talk about the explicit one, this is more on the facts and events. Okay, so recalling facts and events is it comes under the explicit memory, and explicit memory is a type of long term memory. So again, there are 2 types in declarative memory, that is episodic memory, which is about our personal experiences, and semantic memory is general facts, signs, symbols, rules, formulas, words and their meanings, and that's how the list goes on. Now we talk about the implicit memory. The implicit memory also further is divided into four types. However, we call only three types here. So I've written three types. But the implicit memory has also one more type, which you can actually not consider, but yeah, you can just remember that. Okay. So the implicit or the non-declarative one involves some unconscious skills and tasks. Okay. So it's about uh, first is the procedural memory, the first type, and this type says how we recall, the ability of our recalling of how to perform a task is procedures. How we remember the procedure is our procedural memory. Then we go to the second type, which is the associative memory. um, Here we remember connections between different things. Okay, so we always have a connection between the clouds and the rain. So that connection is that that particular stimulus, and it's there in the associative memory, that when we see a particular thing we understand, okay, it is related to that, or it is because of this particular reason. So that is our associative memory. Then we have the non-associative memory, which means the change in response to a stimulus. So, how your reaction or sensitivity to something can increase or decrease with repeated exposure. And the fourth type is emotional conditioning memory. Now, emotional conditioning is when events trigger stronger emotions. Okay, remembering emotionally charged events more strongly than the neutral events. So, for example, a death of a loved one. So, when we still, some person has died many years ago, but when we remember that person, we still tend to have tears in our eyes. So that particular thing comes under the emotional conditioning memory. Okay, then we have two more types. You cannot call it types, but they are these terms that you need to know. One is priming, which is again a type of implicit memory, which helps the brain to connect related ideas or memories, making it quicker to recall or notice things you have experienced before without even trying. Okay, and there is another one, that is eidetic memory. Eidetic memory is all about vividly recalling an image from memory with high precision and accuracy, but for a very brief period of time. For example, remembering the dress on a mannequin. Now, when you see this dress on a mannequin, gets stored into the short term memory, because you don't keep looking at it for more than 30 seconds. However, it gets stored in your brain, but later on also, when you go home, you're able to remember that with accuracy. Okay, there was this color embroidery, or it was of this particular color, the design was this, the pattern was this, there were 10 sequences on the top. That is all eidetic memory. Okay, so here I think we end this session, but before that I have a chart for you, which will, yes, so here we have a good chart that tells us about the types, and they quite nicely describe the chart. You can actually keep in mind this particular chart when you are learning. Okay, I will just yeah, so here we end this session, and thank you so much for patient listening, and I hope to see you for the next session. Thank you.